Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fringe Coverage. This podcast profiles the stories, swings, and stars of the LPGA Tour. Whether you're new to women's golf or a longtime fan of the LPGA, hopefully this helps you develop your own rooting interest in women's professional golf. Today we've got quite the episode lined up. We've got some really unique topics today, including one of my favorite player deep dives. But first, my favorite player of all, my co-host, Tom. How's it going, buddy?
Mark, flattery gets you everywhere with me. Thank you.
How's the week been? How's your golf watching been the last few days?
Sporadic, but good. I'm enjoying this tournament. Yet again, I'm very bad at picking golfers to win tournaments, but it's been an enjoyable round. And so, as you and I are recording on Sunday morning, so the tournament's not completed yet, but before the fourth group finishes, we got Miranda Wang at number one, and yet another golfer who hasn't won a tournament this season.
This is
Will this
wild.
finally force me to pick somebody new that hasn't won? Probably not. But this streak is just, I mean, it's ridiculous. I can't get enough of it. Every time I look it up, I just go, surely this is the week.
Especially with like the ballers that haven't won yet. Like it's not like all the big names have won and they're not repeating. Like there's big people on the board that have not clipped off a win yet. So like you
Rose
said,
Zhang
we're
is
in
tied for second, and she hasn't won either.
yeah. Yeah, actually, quite a few of the top five have not won, if I'm not mistaken. It's good to see Rose with some form. Like you said, we're in the middle of it's final round of FM Championship at TPC Boston. Miranda Wang, the last two rounds especially, she finished round two as the lead and round three with the lead, putting out of her mind. Only had 24 putts yesterday. Don't know how long that putting magic's going to last, but let's see. Did a little deep dive on her this morning. Really great interview. Really excited to kind of see her come up. She's flirting with that cut line of the top 60 for CME, so this would vault her kind of to a much better standing. She's a rookie on tour this year. You mentioned it could be another first time winner this year. Not only another new winner, but a first time winner as a rookie. And she's playing with Rose, who they've known each other since junior golf. So very comfy pairing for them going into the final round. So they did have some weather delays on day two, made for a really long day on the golf course the last couple of days. Some of the players were posting on social media just they were been there 9, 10 hours between finishing their early morning round and then getting their next round underway. So kind of an exhausting week out there in Boston. You mentioned the picks. You picked Minji Lee, which dude, after day one, Minji was tied for the lead or just off the lead after day one. I picked Gino, who has just slowly plodded her way to playing in the, I think maybe penultimate group today. So she is still in contention, four shots
She's
back going
T4.
to the final round.
Let me
So
ask you a quick question because you would know the answer to this. So why is Rose Zhang in the final pairing when she is T2 with Si Young Kim?
yeah, so for both men's and women's golf, whoever gets in the clubhouse first with that score gets into the final group. So in this case, Miranda obviously is four shots ahead of everybody. Rose made her putt to get to 15 under prior to say Young Kim doing that. So it's truly the first ball in the cup to finish 18. Clubhouse leader gets the final spot.
Cool.
There you
Good to
go.
know.
So we're going to dive right in. Like I said, we have a couple things we're going to get to today. We're going to talk about Lydia Ko. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame because Lydia is a Hall of Famer. But before we do that, Tom, last time we teased we want to figure out who your favorite player is. And as you're relatively new to cheering on the LPGA and diving deeper into all of these players' backstories, not just their golf games, I think you mentioned last time, I'm going to be your sommelier. I'm going to help you start picking out a list of golfers just to watch. You're not going to figure this out overnight, but today we're going to figure out what that criteria is. So in the coming episodes, I'm going to come back based on today's assignment that you give me and the criteria you give me. I'm going to come back with some golfers that I think fit the bill for you, both what you share today and just what I know about your personality who might pique your interest. But so to do that, we need to know what matters most to you.
Yes, you
And
gave me homework this week, and then I'm going to in turn give you homework for next week.
That's right. And so I think you've got some criteria that you're going to share and I might poke some questions or clarifying questions as we go. And feel free to share some favorites outside of LPGA as well, athletes of whether it's PGA Tour, whether hockey, whatever
Sure.
your sports are, and maybe why, just because that might help shed some light on the type of athletes you find yourself gravitating towards. So floor is yours. Tell us what gets you going from a favorite athlete perspective.
So one of the things that is an absolute must for picking my favorite golfer would be personality. I'm not looking for somebody who is robotic and just shows up to do a job. I want somebody who is enjoyable to root for on the course, off the course. If they are social media savvy, they're posting videos after rounds, stuff like that. I enjoy that. They don't shy away from an interview. Uh, they're philanthropic. They spend their free time to help others. I think that is always a plus. Not to denigrate anyone. I'm not looking for a Patrick Cantlay who is just, very monotone, does not want to be famous. He's just
Sure.
like, no, I'm a golfer. I'm not a celebrity. So
Okay.
that goes far for me. Number two, good dresser. So one of my favorite athletes from when I was a kid was Allen Iverson. And I would say if anyone were to ask me who my favorite basketball player of all time is, it's still Allen Iverson. If someone says, who's the GOAT, MJ or LeBron, I say, no, it's Allen Iverson. And I think I was 10 years old when he was drafted. Like it was just the perfect spot for me. And he has, tons of swag, wears the accessories. I really enjoy all that.
Were you a kid? Were you like wearing sleeves growing up because he did?
I never wore the sleeves. I definitely wore a headband during my stagecoach rec days.
Sick.
Yeah. I
Okay.
would choose
Okay.
number three because of Allen Iverson. Still my favorite number to this day.
Okay.
I want somebody who is very good with the driver.
Okay.
Now, not because that speaks to me, just because I enjoy watching that. Putting, who cares?
And are
I
you talking
want,
someone that bombs it? Or are you talking about someone that hits it straight? Both? Like driver can be a lot of like. Do you want someone who's a little volatile with the driver? Like
sure.
Bryson?
Yeah, you want something that's going to be exciting. I don't
Okay.
want just straight down the middle every time, throw a
Oh
fade
man,
on
I
it.
do. Give me that all day. You and I have different golfer profiles, that's for sure. Okay, keep going. I like this. I'm taking notes.
This one is very important to me, Mark. I want somebody who is also aggressive. So if there is a situation where they can go for the green with a 5 iron, or they have to choose to lay it up with an 8 iron and then live to fight another day and chip on, that's not what I'm looking for. I want someone who is a go-getter, pin seeking. I mean, from playing golf with me, where you go, all right, Tom, it is 140 to the center of the green. And I go, cool, how much to the pin? That's tucked behind the bunker. And you go, no, no, you should be aiming for the center of the green. And I go, I don't want to. I want to aim for the pin. So somebody
Okay.
who also shares that mentality.
Okay.
Now, this last point, this one is not a must, but it does really give brownie points. So, as you know from playing golf with me, I am a righty, but I putt lefty.
Okay.
If you could find somebody who either putts offhand like I do, does a crossed hand grip, has a sweeper, putter, something unorthodox.
Okay. Do you care about where they are in their career?
Oh, interesting. I would probably enjoy a an up and comer a little bit
Okay.
more, somebody
Okay.
not as established, so I don't feel like a front runner. I don't want to come out and say, "Oh yeah, Nelly Cord is my favorite golfer."
I mean, she does a lot of the things you just said.
Uh-oh.
She
Okay.
might have some Canlay vibes at times, but it's only because so much is asked of her. I think if people left her alone, I think she'd be a really interesting interview. But when you get asked the same question over and over again, you start to sound like a robot,
Sure.
because you just were asked it. We'll get into that with Lydia Ko even. Is there any reverse criteria, as in things like things I cannot have? So we talked about all the things that you do gravitate towards. Is there something that's going to turn you off immediately?
Oh, interesting. I think most people would think maybe like a club throw would be a deterrent. Not for me.
Bring them on. Okay.
I've calmed in my golf game where I don't do that as much. I definitely used to be a club thrower, and I'm even not really much of a club smasher. If I make a bad chip or something, I don't smash my club into the ground.
You're not a ball
I,
smasher either, so I think that's consistent.
well, thanks, Mark. But somebody that shows a little fire on the course, I'm all for.
Okay.
What's a
I like
complete deterrent?
this.
I don't like people who are jerks on the course, that's for sure.
Okay, so they can throw a club, but they can't be a jerk.
Yes, because throwing a club I think is more of an internal thing. I wouldn't want, if
Okay.
somebody's, yelling at a playing partner for
Fan.
a ball
Okay.
mark or turns like how John Rahm, it seems seemingly once a month will turn around and yell at a fan for something.
Sure.
That doesn't really endear
Okay.
the golfer to me.
Okay. I'm going to noodle on this a bit. I'm going to come back in a future episode with a handful of players that I want you to take a look at. They won't all be the same profile, but I think it'll be a good smattering of the things that you've asked for here. I'll try to hit every piece of criteria. If you had, I'm curious, you mentioned Allen Iverson. Is there anybody else? Who else do you find yourself rooting for now in any sport? And again, it doesn't have to be golf.
Well, the first one that came to my mind was a golfer, Max Homa. So
Okay.
he hits that first one, I mean, to a T, where he's super online and very friendly with fans and all that. Very willing to. He's very receptive to that. He jumps on podcasts. He will post funny videos. He's very open about his family life and how it affects him.
Okay.
Fantastic. And obviously he's had a bad year. Even
Yeah.
last year wasn't great, but still sticking with it, and he's still probably my favorite golfer on tour.
Okay.
Uh, you know what would be really good brownie points if they're from California? Even more pointedly, San Diego. That helps.
Okay.
I get to
Okay.
root for a hometown person. So Xander's nice. I find myself rooting for him. He's an SDSU guy, and he'll still show up on some San Diego courses every now and then. So I think
Any other
that's
places that you would have
well, I was born in Michigan, so I would say if
Michigan?
there's
Okay.
any, I don't know how many Detroit natives are on tour right now, but
I know. I mean,
eh,
Michigan. I mean, in Ann Arbor, just in general, the college, you are a big fan of their sports program. So anyone that attended University of Michigan, I assume, would also be of
sure.
interest. Okay.
Yeah,
All
throw them
right.
on the list.
All right, Tom. This is a pretty good segue, actually, because we are going to deep dive on, in my opinion, one of the most interesting athletes on the planet. And I don't mean golfers and I don't mean on the LPGA. I mean just athletes. And we're talking Lydia Ko. We're going to dive into everything, but I want to start here because I think it's a good table setter. So, Lydia won her first event 13 years ago. Okay. Her first LPGA event she won 13 years ago. She has 23 career wins, three majors. Is the youngest player to reach $1 million dollars in earnings, $2 million, dollars, $3 million, dollars, $4 million, dollars, $5 million, dollars, $6 million, dollars, $7 million, dollars, and $8 million. Dollars. She is the second in all time career earnings. Now, again, women's game, certainly more money being pumped into it every year. There's going to be some skew to those stats. But again, this is an active player who is second in all time earnings, only behind Annika Sorenstam, and not far behind, I might add. And she is currently in the Hall of Fame, and she is on record as saying she may retire in the next couple years. And all that to say, Lydia Ko is 28 years old.
Oh,
That's nuts, dude. I gave you the highlights of this woman's career, but when you're talking retirement, Hall of Fame, and career earnings for someone who hasn't hit 30 yet, they're doing something pretty special. So that's as we start getting into her background, just know that this is, at this point, as a Hall of Famer, she's quite literally a living legend and a playing legend at that. So, as mentioned, she's 28 years old. Lydia was originally born in Seoul, South Korea, but at age 4 moved to New Zealand. So, she's born and raised in New Zealand, started playing golf at age 5. Again, so she's only 28 years old. She's been playing golf for 23 of those 28 years. When she was an amateur, she played in 16 LPGA events in 2012 and 2013 and did not miss a cut. Okay, remember, in 2012 and 2013, those are her first 2 years on tour. She's 15 years old,
hmm.
did not miss a cut. That is nuts. Made her pro debut in 2013. 2014 was her first full year. Not surprisingly, won Rookie of the Year. The LPGA had to change their membership rules to allow Lydia to join early. 2013, the LPGA had to grant Lydia's request to join the LPGA early, waiving their own requirement of members having to be 18 years old. Again, she's 15 at the time. And at the time, Mike Wan was the commissioner and had this just epic quote. It's not often that the LPGA welcomes a rookie who was already a back to back LPGA Tour champion. That's ridiculous stuff.
Nuts.
So, kind of in the youngest ever category, she was youngest ever to reach number one in the world in 2015, where she was 17 years old, number one golfer in the world. Youngest ever to win an LPGA event, youngest ever to win a major, youngest ever to win two majors. And again, she's piling all this up, and we're talking about her like she's some 45-year-old retired veteran, and she's still not only playing, but she's coming off of probably her most fairy tale season ever. 2015, she became the youngest. You're going to love this stat as an all sports guy. In 2015, she became the youngest MVP or player of the year across all four major sports and the PGA and LPGA. So she was 18 years old when she won the Player of the Year award. Tom, do you know who the youngest player is in any? Do you have a guess of any of the other major sports plus the PGA Tour? Again, all of them are over 18 years old because Lydia set that record. Any guesses on who the youngest MVP was in the NHL?
Connor McDavid.
No. Most famous hockey name of all time.
Wayne Gretzky. Okay.
19 years old, Wayne Gretzky. All right. MVP, you might get this one of the NBA.
D Rose.
Wow, you did get it. And Derrick
All
Rose was
right.
22 when he won that. Jim Brown for the NFL, 21 years old. And Major League Baseball, Stan Musial, Johnny Bench, and Vita Blue, all 22 years old. PGA Tour, any wild guesses who that might be?
Tiger.
Tiger was 21
I'm
years
on
old when he won
fire.
his first Player of the Year, 3 years older than Lydia Ko.
Wow.
So, some fun stuff that I think might check some of those boxes you listed as criteria earlier. Lydia Ko is a dame. She was officially given Dame companion status by the New Zealand Order of Merit in 2025. Again, it's for services to golf to the Crown. So she is, in fact, Dame Lydia Ko.
And I'm guessing she's the youngest dame.
Yeah, she's probably, in fact, you know what? I don't know. She's probably the youngest dame for services to golf, but there may be some young dames for services outside the area of golf to the New Zealand Order of Merit. She's a big foodie. Really fun quote from her. Let me pull this up. She said, I'm forever the Asian that loves Korean food. I could eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And at the same time, I love our pace of life in New Zealand. My DNA is to get everything done. And if there's a problem, fix it. But Kiwis are relaxed and take a step back to everything and everything. As I've gotten older, I've embraced that more. And you've kind of see it in her evolution. She was kind of a type A results focused golfer when she was super young, very successful as we've outlined, but has the New Zealand influence has really taken hold and has really kind of changed her scope as a golfer. She met her husband on a blind date, 1,000 guests at their wedding in Seoul, South Korea. Not a small wedding. When she was 17, she said she was going to be a psychologist when she retired, and she expected to retire when she turned 30.
Can you
Still
imagine
very
being friends
possible.
with Lydia Ko and not being invited to the wedding?
Ooh,
Like,
yeah,
like I'm
that's
not one of your 1,000 closest friends.
yeah. Tom, you're in my top 1,000.
Yeah.
You
Now that we do
you're
this podcast.
you're squarely there because you said yes to the co-hosting duties. You just scratched the you're in that. You might even be top 900.
For anyone that wants to actually, be friends with Mark and get him to text you back, just start a podcast with him. Mark would is a serial ghoster when it comes to text messages. And then, 3 months later he'll say, "Oh, just came up for some air and I saw that you texted me." And I go, "Well, Mark, I know that you've been on your phone in the past week, but that's fine." But since Mark and I have started a podcast, I probably get, what would you say, about 10 text messages a day from you?
At least.
At least.
Hey,
It's worth it just for that.
is it my fault that it took you a while to figure out how to pique my interest? That's just not knowing your friends well enough. If you had been texting me about LPGA all this time, we would have had just a budding texting relationship,
That's on
which
me.
probably both of our wives probably are happy that we don't. Lydia now lives in Florida, loves her dog Kai. As a note to those of you in Southern California, she's a big fan of In-N-Out Burger. She has a routine normally of Sunday nights. If she has the time after a tournament, she goes and gets a burger somewhere, whether it's Five Guys, In-N-Out, wherever she is in the country. She likes to get a burger. So I always like to know what people are if they ever allow themselves to cheat a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about Lydia's golf. She's currently third in the Rolex ranking, 16th in the race to the CME, a bit of a slow start. As we've talked about, a lot of points have been dispersed evenly this year with all of the first time winners and one time winners. So, strength of her game, short game, dude. You know that's why she's going to rocket to the top of my board. She is fifth in strokes gained around the green, eighth in strokes gained putting. She doesn't hit it that far. She's just slightly below tour average in terms of distance and strokes gained off the tee. But you put her around the green, and it is art. It is an art form. When you sometimes you'll see an LPGA player get asked, "Hey, build your ideal golfer. Your whose driver would you take? Whose putter would you take?" And everyone takes Lydia short game. Everyone takes it. I mentioned this earlier from a career perspective 23 career LPGA wins, including three majors. She's won the CME Group Championship twice. She has 115 career top tens. Again, we're talking about someone who's still playing and is 28 years old. Her three majors were the 2015 Evian. Pay attention to these dates 2015 Evian, 2016 Chevron, and 2024 AIG Women's Open. 8-year gap between majors 2 and 3, and had some major moments of down, especially of 2023, of wondering whether she still had it. In the 66 majors she's made 59 cuts, which is nuts. 18 top tens. At the 2015 Evian, again, her very first major win, she shot a final round 63, which at the time was the lowest final round ever in a women's major, until she shot 62 at the 2021, at the time ANA Inspiration. It's changed name. It's the Chevron now. But so she broke her own final round scoring record. I mentioned she had a really rough 2023. Was very public about the thoughts she had about hanging it up and whether she had it anymore. And then 2024, she comes out, she wins the AIG Women's Open for her third major at St. Andrews, then goes on to win a gold medal,
Hmm.
which double on top of winning a gold medal in the Olympics, it was her 27th Hall of Fame point, and we'll get into this later, but you need 27 points to earn your way into the Hall of Fame. So, in the same breath that she won a gold medal, she also earned her way into the LPGA Hall of Fame. We talk about the Olympics. She holds all 3 medals. She has a gold, silver, and bronze. She started off in the 2016 Olympics with silver. Back in 2020 in Tokyo, she won bronze and then won gold just a year ago. So she has an Olympic rings tattoo right in her right bicep. Super
Cool.
sick. But she, again, just a huge fairy tale year. I talked about her career earnings. She's now $21.2 million behind only Annika Sorenstam. And honestly, within the next year, she could easily pass Annika,
Mhm.
which would make her the all-time leader. She's won every award. I won't list them for the podcast listeners' sake, but if there's an award on the LPGA, she's won it. And like I said, she's a walking, playing Hall of Famer. Not surprisingly, youngest player ever to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Not too many people. This is one of those interesting things where you actually need to still be playing to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Whereas every other sport you and I follow, there's a vote. There's things that happen well after your career is over to decide whether or not you're in the Hall of Fame. This is much more objective, and there's a point system that says whether you do or don't make it. And then ultimately, I talked about her retirement. She's been asked, "Are you still going to play beyond 30? Are you going to play beyond 30? Have you rethought about that?" And her comment is, "I'm enjoying playing golf while I am. I'm not going to play forever. Whenever I hang it up, I have nothing else to prove to the game." But she's still chasing the career Grand Slam, which is a hard thing to do when there's 5 majors on the
Right.
LPGA as opposed to 4, so that much harder. But she is still seeking that out. She has 3 majors. She still needs a U.S. Open and I believe a PGA. But that's a goal of hers. Whether or not it's something that's going to keep her playing, I think will really be telling in the next 18 months or so before she hits 30.
I mean, that's incredible, right? That's not even something that you would think is possible to be able to start that young and still just, achieve all those accomplishments. Yeah, so somebody like that would be one of my favorites, like Scotty would be, right? But it's just so it's front running, right? To pick, one of the greatest of all time. While she has my unending respect, I don't know if she could be my favorite golfer because she's just been doing it for such a long time. I would feel like a fraud saying she's my favorite. But Lewis
Let me,
Hamilton's my favorite racer of all time, so sure, she
yeah.
could be up there too.
I mean, look, I appreciate the sentiment of what you're trying to do there. People don't get into new sports because of like the 200th best player, right? No one gets in like, oh man, do I love that eighth man off the Detroit Pistons bench, right? Like, other
Mhm.
than maybe you. Honestly, if the women's golf game is going to take off here in the next couple years, it's probably, at least in the States, it's going to be because of Nelly, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. That's going to just, but people, I want Nelly to be the gateway, right? People get in because of Nelly. They've seen her across platforms, across sports. And then, oh man, who's she playing with? Wow, this
And then
Lauren
they find
Hovland's
their Marcus
interesting.
Sasser.
Right.
Yeah.
Their market, wow, nice pull. Nice pull. Way to bring it home. Go with who you want. No one's judging you right now on the
Of
type of
course.
golfer you're choosing. If you came out of this saying, man, shocker alert, I chose one of the top 5 women in the world. Awesome, man. They're top 5 for a reason.
Right. She's
Um,
she's the LeBron of the LPGA. It's so impressive from start to finish to be able to do this at such a young age and to maintain that level of success through her I was going to say her golden age of 29, you know.
right? Well, as probably as good a segue as any, I mentioned that Lydia is in the Hall of Fame, and that's not normal for sports that you can earn your way into the Hall of Fame while playing. And the reason being is The Hall of Fame has a straight up objective scoring system of you have to earn a certain number of points to become an LPGA member. There's no committee, there's no vote. It's if you fulfill the criteria, you are in the Hall of Fame. So, a bit of background on the Hall of Fame. The LPGA Hall of Fame was established in 1967. There are currently only 35 members. When you start hearing this criteria, I'm curious if you think this feels easy, hard, about right. Along the way, since 1967, the Hall of Fame developed a scoring system that states any active tour members since 1998 and later must fulfill following criteria. Because again, as time has evolved, as the tournament schedule has evolved, they made this applicable to post 1998. You have to earn 27 points to qualify.
So are we assuming that everybody who played before 1998, there was some sort of
There was still
criteria that needed to be
criteria.
met for them to make the Hall of Fame? Okay.
Correct. Not only do you have to earn 27 points, which we'll get to how those points are earned in a second, you must have also won at least one of the following: an LPGA major, the VAR trophy, which is the annual lowest scoring average for the season, or the Rolex Player of the Year award. A lot of those things kind of go hand in hand. You can see how you can have a lot of points in one year. Spoiler alert, that's how Nelly got so many points last year because she won 7 golf tournaments and a major and was Player of the Year. Here's how you earn. So remember, those are just qualifying criteria. You could, if you don't get a major, the VAR trophy or Rolex player, you're not even eligible if you start getting those points. So here's how you earn points. You get 1 point for any LPGA Tour win. You get 2 points for any LPGA major. So obviously they're heavily weighting those championships. 1 point for winning the VAR trophy, again, the lowest scoring average of the year. 1 point for winning the Rolex Player of the Year. And a new addition, 1 point for winning an Olympic gold medal.
Gold only. Can I jump
So,
in? So
yeah,
the Rolex Player of the Year, is that subjective or is that purely based on numbers?
that
Is that
is a
is
great
that a
question,
voting
Tom.
thing?
I don't know if that's a vote or if that is a cumulative thing of if you just are the number one player at the end of the year.
All right, I'll see if I can figure that out while you talk.
Cool. You got to earn 27 points and you have to have won one of those three awards or majors to be qualified. So we just mentioned Lydia Ko just got her 27th point as an Olympic gold medal last year. All right, Tom, there are only 10 players currently within 10 points of that 27-point threshold.
Wow.
So who's closest to getting in? It's technically Yanni Sang, who we've mentioned her this podcast and a couple others. Yanni's at 23 points, which 4 points away means she needs to clip off a couple more wins or a major. Again, player of the year would probably happen if she's already winning. But as we've well documented at this point, Yanni was in the wilderness for nearly a decade. So while she's technically the closest in terms of points, then the next closest is Jin Young Ko, who people think is the closest in terms of where they are in their careers, Nelly Korda. Nelly is already at 19 points. Nelly won 7 times last year, six plus a major. The only other people on the list within that 10-point threshold, Stacey Lewis, again, sunsetting her career. She's Solheim Cup team captain. And then another person who does have an outside chance is Arya Jatanagarn. Arya was one of the people, I think Arya is the one who unseated Lydia the first time from her number one player status. Those 5 women are the only people that really technically still have a shot. And even though it's like 2 or 3 of those felt like a pretty outside shot.
So to win the Rolex Player of the Year, it is purely points based. It's not voting. So
Okay.
with the PGA Tour's Player of the Year, that is voted by the members. LPGA is purely based on points.
Okay. You've now heard how to get into the Hall of Fame. I'm just curious where your mind takes you when you hear that the LPGA has a points based Hall of Fame system.
One, I think it is very interesting that you pretty much need to be a current member to get on this, to
For
get into
sure.
the Hall of Fame. This isn't something where, 7 years later, people get in a room together and they vote and they say, "Oh, I think this person had a very good career. Can you tell the story of women's golf without mentioning so and so?
Hmm.
Let's put her in the Hall of Fame."
Sure.
I always find it interesting, if you were, let's take baseball, for example. There's probably, I would say about 10 people right now that if they retired today, they would automatically be in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Based on the current
You're,
body of work.
yes,
Okay.
Kershaw,
Yeah.
Verlander, Trout, maybe
Yeah.
even, somebody current, more current like Aaron Judge.
Yep.
or Shohei, who have had such an impact when they first started playing that they might be able to join immediately. And I always think to myself, what if they just completely fall off a cliff? So if you were to say, Lydia Ko, obviously she's still in it. What if she played for another 10 years and didn't win another major, didn't win more than, two tournaments or something like that, where she was just super hot coming out of the gates and just had a prolonged period of success to start her career, but then really just couldn't get anything going near the end. So, basically two careers. That's still Hall of Fame worthy. So,
Yeah.
something like that, it would definitely take some getting used to for me. You'll see people being left out of the Hall of Fame for when we're talking about baseball. There's the whole steroid era where somebody might get left out, or you do hear these things where there's players who are prickly with the media, and maybe that's why they're not necessarily voted into the Hall of Fame immediately, and maybe, voted in the Hall of Fame a few years down the road. That's not the case here. That's not a possibility.
Makes
So,
you wonder if there is any fine print. When you go on the LPGA website or the Hall of Fame website, it very clearly lines out everything I just wrote out. But it does make you wonder. Let's say someone had a year suspension. Let's say someone amidst their Hall of Fame career, conduct unbecoming, drugs,
right.
who knows? I wonder if there are any fine text stipulations that say, like, hey, if you run afoul of the tour, we have the ability to revoke your Hall of Fame status or your eligibility for it.
Yeah.
I've not read that, but it is interesting because you could do serious harm to this tour. Like, I think of Barry Bonds, right? You talk about the steroid era,
I
and
thought
if
of O.J. Simpson.
okay, you got real aggressive with it. Okay, OJ. Yeah, let's go there. Let's go there. Why not, Tom? Let's go OJ. If Lydia Ko white broncoed somebody and all of a sudden and is still 27 plus points into her Hall of Fame career, does the LPGA have I'm sure there is some way for there to do it, whether or not there's lawsuits that come with it of keeping of barring someone from the Hall of Fame. But outside of that subjectivity that's more kind of off the course, off the field stuff that we're alluding to right now, there is something that feels very earned about all of this. And I think what you just said kind of crystallized it for me of those players that if they stop today, a lot of sports start to maybe reward longevity too much. Of just playing doesn't mean that makes you a Hall of Fame
Stat
candidate.
padding.
If you put 25 years, but yeah, the last six you were batting 230, but you did get some more hits and some more home runs and the stats. This point system I just read off is not stats based. Think about it. When you talk about why someone made the MLB Hall of Fame, it's because, oh, think about all the homers they hit or the strikeouts they got. At no point did I say it's because they were the best putter, the best driver, the best iron player. Now, you have to do a lot of those things well to earn VAR players of the year, Rolex players of the year, and win majors. But it's not individual skill sets that get it's all around game. I think I net out I like this. I think it's sick. Maybe because it's unique is why I like it so much. But you did mention committee vote. There are still some instances where people can be voted on after the fact. There used to be a veterans committee where people could actually go and evaluate people that played before 1998 and whether they deserved a spot in the LPGA Hall of Fame. More recently, Judy Rankin was someone that got brought in for her contributions to golf. Again, this is where you get into the non-golfing, non-athlete side of the LPGA. What about a broadcaster? What about a rule, someone that had really changed the game of golf, maybe not just
Podcaster.
with podcaster, right? When you know what we should do? If there ever becomes a voting committee, we should try to get fringe coverage to get to vote, be one of the voting members of the media.
Now we're talking.
But you know what? LPGA doesn't allow any voting, so that's probably something we don't need to spend much time on.
Well, it is interesting, the thing that always interests me about the Hall of Fame is that numbers evolve. So you have somebody, Joe Namath is in the Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Joe Namath has more losses than he does wins, but when he was inducted, he was considered one of the best all time. At least with the LPGA, they have this benchmark and they say once you reach this, you are considered elite.
Yeah.
And to your point earlier, it's not like they're letting, a dozen people in every year and this
No.
this Hall of Fame is now being watered down. This is still the elite of the elite. And what I would find to be very interesting is once Lydia Ko or anyone succeeds in being inducted into the Hall of Fame, how does that change their mindset? Because
Yep.
now they have achieved the most elite, well, I guess maybe not the most elite, but probably the most coveted status. You are now a Hall of Fame golfer. You are one of the best golfers of all time. Now, like you said, she's still going for the Grand Slam, and there's only there are 7 LPGA players who have achieved that, and she's not one of them. So, if you ask her maybe 5 years ago, what is your goal? She might say to become a Hall of Famer. Now that she's achieved that, she might say, well, I'd really like to be one of the 7 Grand Slam winners. I would just be interested to know how that changes your mindset approaching every tournament.
Yeah, there's a really good golf.com interview last year by Sean Zock. It went to Lydia Ko's home, long form interview, like 30 minutes. And they talked about this and he asked, how do you feel freed up? And she said, yeah, I absolutely feel freed up, especially for someone who's been on record as saying she'll be ready to retire before most. She says it allows her to focus differently. So, as you alluded to, if she really wants the career Grand Slam, she can actually start changing the way she trains and the way she schedules to target those 2 tournament weeks a year that she wants to peak. So if you're trying to win the US Women's Open, which is just like the men, is historically one of the harder events, long, rough, it has a certain course profile. You're going to train differently for that than the Evian or for the AI or for the AIG Women's Open. So theoretically, if that is something that Lydia wants to set her sights on and isn't doesn't care about whether she wins the Portland event or the FM championship or any other season long event, she has said it frees her up.
That is interesting. That would probably a goal for her.
Like
Schedule less
having,
tournaments and really
yeah,
just hone in on that.
never play more than 2 or 3 weeks straight. So you're not on burnout at any point. Make
Yeah.
sure you're peaking. You're playing the right courses that have a similar profile to where you're going. You did mention something about the Grand Slam, and we should probably clarify those Grand Slam winners. There have not always been 5 majors. So that
Sure.
list of Grand Slam majors, those aren't 5 major winners. There, I don't know how many of those won five, if any.
Only Carrie Webb has won all 5.
Kari Webb makes sense.
Kari Webb,
Yeah,
sorry.
that makes sense. Super interesting. I love knowing who's close to the Hall of Fame. You, I think, almost purposely stumbled on your words when you're talking about you use the word coveted for the Hall of Fame because it's not a voting thing, because it's not a post-career thing. I don't know that Hall of Fame gets as much attention on the LPGA as it does other sports because it's such a contentious water cooler topic for other sports. Like, oh, do you think he should be voted in? I know he did steroids, but he should. There's so much subjectivity to it. It allows
Sure.
people, podcasters, be able to talk as much as they want about it. I think in golf, and we touched on this 2 episodes ago, with 5 majors, that's where the attention is, right? And if you play well in those majors, the Hall of Fame will naturally become a discussion for you or something that you're on trajectory on. But I don't know that anyone is saying, I'm setting out on my career to become a Hall of Famer the way maybe you do in some of these other sports. So next week, we have a week off this week. There is no tournament. They're taking a week off. Right now, they're at TPC Boston. No tournament this week. And then September 11th through 14th is the next tournament, the Kroger Queen City Championship out in Ohio. Just as a status update on the FM Championship, it looks like Miranda Wang has stretched her lead to 4. She's 2 under through 3 holes. Rose is 1 under through 3. Huge shout out. Jin Hee Im shot 10 under today. Went out in 30 and shot 32 on the back, bogey free 62. That's a pretty nice day on the golf course, I'd say. So again, super early in the front 9 of Sunday, but it looks like we're gonna have some chasers today because if Miranda Wang puts anything like she did the last couple of days, they may have a tall order to come and get her.
Call it. Who's going to win?
Well, I'm not going to change my pick. Gino's still chasing, so I'm going to stick with Gino, man. She's tied for third. She's what, 5 shots back early in the round. Miranda hasn't won yet. She's a rookie. I'll call it now. Look at the 10, 11, 12, 13 hole stretch as pivotal to this tournament. She plays even par through there. She'll be fine. If she stumbles, Gino coming.
All right, man. Well, another fun week. Thank you for all the information on the Hall of Fame. I had no idea. You mentioned this to me in person a couple of weeks ago, and you stopped me in my tracks. I'd never heard of anything like that. So thanks for all the info on that.
Yeah, man.
And as always, if you have any suggestions for players or topics to discuss on the podcast, send us an email at fringecoverage@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram at fringecoveragepod. Mark is very active on that and doing a great job, I might add. You can follow us on X at fringeCoverageX. As always, whether you're approaching from the fairway or the rough, we got you covered inside the fringe.
See you next time, guys.